So, you want to buy a game, but should you? Now, back in the day, in the early 90s and early 2000s, buying video games was a lot different because they were cheaper and more affordable. Except like when you were buying them brand new, of course. Sometimes they were even more expensive than the ones today. And it was just easier to collect more because of these reasons. They were just everywhere and for really good prices. So the natural inclination was to buy as much as you could so that you could play these things anytime you wanted. But over the years, video games have become mainstream with an almost overwhelming amount of games to choose from on different platforms with more content and hours of gameplay. And the way we used to think about buying video games needs to change in order to adapt to this. But for today, I want to give you my top 5 considerations when buying video games. Number 1, know the purpose of your purchase. Why am I buying this? Does a friend have it that I could borrow from? Am I buying this due to FOMO? $10 off. Could I have just emulated this? Really giving time to consider the purpose of your purchase is going to set the groundwork for deciding if this is a purchase that makes sense. Now, I've been there. It's very easy to see something come up out of nowhere and then make an impulsive decision. But really, is that something that you really want to do? Or are you just buying something because it feels good to buy it in the moment? But regardless of what the purpose is, going through the process of considering it will help you maintain self-control and to ensure you're making a conscious decision. Because if you don't, you may unknowingly be chasing a feeling and end up with a game you don't really want. Number 2, is this something I'm actually going to use and or value in the future? This is really important to consider, especially when thinking about your collection in the long term. Because you've probably purchased, traded, or sold games in the past that you never really played, besides just testing to see if it worked. If you do value it and plan to play it, ask yourself, for how long? When you buy a game, you're not just making a transaction, you're kind of making a commitment. That game costs money, space, time, thought, and energy. But for whatever reasons you value the game or plans you have in using it, it's good to understand this ahead of time to spare yourself from a lot of hassle in the future. Now the next point is physical versus digital. Now I'll be the first to admit, full disclosure here, I'm pretty biased towards physical, because there's a lot of advantages in the physical compared to the digital long term compared to the short term advantages or pros in the digital. Now, when buying a game, it is important to consider the physical or the digital version of the game because of their various pros and cons. When it comes to the price and function, there isn't much difference between the two formats. Sure, digital games may load a little faster, but they play the same as physical copies in virtually all cases. They also both have various prices with sales and special offers. Where they differ is in conveniences and value, and your preferences at the time will likely lead you to one choice or the other. But you may want to compare prices and the overall advantages and disadvantages on both sides just to see what your options are. However, it's important to be aware that your digital copies may not be reaccessible or recoverable in the future once online platforms are no longer supported. But you may also consider playing a game as a service instead of a piece of property that you own or lease. Buying Xbox Game Pass for a month may be a better decision to play a specific game than buying it at whole price. But generally, you want to consider both the digital and the physical options, even if you lean towards one side more than the other. Next consideration is used or brand new. Now, generally speaking, both used and brand new games tend to reduce in price over time. However, some types of games are limited in production and may maintain and increase in value in the months and years to come. So, taking what you've learned from previous considerations, you may want to weigh the costs, benefits, and potential risks when choosing to buy a game at any particular moment. For example, there might be a game that you were kind of excited about to play, so you end up buying it, but you end up only playing it for a couple days, maybe a month, don't finish it and put it away. But then a year goes by and you look at the price of the games and it's about half the price you paid, so you could have just waited. It could be a good rule of thumb to wait to buy games that you're not super hyped about and see if your patience pays off. Overall, checking the prices of both used and brand new listings of games that you're looking for is a healthy practice. And the last consideration, how much do I want this compared to something else? What do I really want? Sometimes faulty logic creeps in, and we can forget about the stuff we really want. Buying something on impulse can often lead to a buyer's remorse. On the other hand, there's a lot of satisfaction and anticipation in buying something you've been planning for. With so many games existing and being made, it's impossible to enjoy them all. So sticking to the ones you're personally excited for could be a good principle to stick by. Of course, there will be exceptions to this, but keeping what you really want in mind can help you spend your money and time more efficiently. Unless you're a full set collector or the like, the quality of your collection may matter more to you in the long run than the quantity of your collection. So in conclusion, really it's about being more conscious and mindful of your purchase in terms of its immediate value to you and long-term value. You want to know why you're buying something and that you're buying it for the reasons that you want to buy them. By applying some of these tips, maybe you might start making better decisions that you're happy with long-term, and there's no regret, less impulse purchasing, and you feel good about your collection and not hankered down about what you're going to do with all this stuff in a couple years. So I hope that this video has been helpful. If it has, feel free to give it a like, subscribe, and give me a comment on what you think was most valuable in this video, and maybe some of your best purchases and some of your worst purchases that you've made.